Good morning, everybody, and how's it going? Today is Wednesday. It is time to go over YieldMax and Roundhill distributions, but most importantly, YieldMax, because those are the big pairs. And of course, we'll go over Roundhill because I do own Roundhill as well. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. We have the Twitter open, or x.com open, as always, where they post at 6:55, or today was actually 6:56. Their distributions, and as well as their article leading to the distributions, which also was posted at 6:55. So let's go ahead and take a straight look at it. We're going to go ahead and go to the website. Let's not look at the Twitter any longer. We have the first payment from GPTY, the new weekly payer for AI in the tech portfolio option income ETF. And GPTY paid us a total of $33.53 per share. And this is after missing a payment last week, or not distributing a payment last week. So if we're assuming that they held the money they earned from last week, or maybe they didn't earn anything, but assuming they did earn, which is usually what happens when they withheld distributions, this would be a distribution with an addition from last week. So we got $33.53 for that. LFGY, we got $62.80. YMAX, we have $19.44, and YMAX is one of the funds that I do own that pays weekly. So we're going to be looking at how much I earn from YMAX. With LFGY also, it's very interesting to see that they are upholding the high distribution rate so far with LFGY, but I don't know yet how stable it is when it comes to the NAV itself. And of course, it could be said that overall return with the distributions could outpace the NAV erosion, but we'll have to see with that. I'm going to give it a couple weeks or months before I actually decide if I'm going to go in or not. And I'm actually looking at GPTY more than LFGY, assuming that these distributions could stay high. But there's also YMAX that's at 1862. Which is being pretty competitive with YMAX recently. It outpaced YMAX last week, I think. I'm pretty sure. And it's been staying competitive with YMAX. Of course, there's that 1 week where it does pay low amounts because that's when MSFO has its distribution, which is a week after MSFO has its distribution. But, you know, it's been doing not that bad. 1862. We have CONY that paid $1.46.8 per share. Of course, CONY, big payer, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, high volatility. We have fiat, which is reverse CONY, $54.98. Then we have MSFO that paid $36.15. AMDY that paid $38.12, and this is another fund I own. And as well, I'm going to go over a little bit in detail about AMD and what my view is on it right in today's video. Because $38.12 is nice, and of course, this is a good distribution per share for the price that AMD is currently trading at. But if you're looking back at past prices, and of course I didn't buy in the past prices, I bought recently in the past 2 to 3 months AMD, so my price, my cost basis is quite low, and I continue to buy in, and I'll talk about that in a second once we get to it. But moving on, NFLY paid also $1.07 per share, and then we have Airbnb that paid, or ABNB, that paid $40.33 per share. PP that paid $66.65 per share, and then we have Ulti that paid $53.69 per share. And of course, we also have the Carvana new ETF, or income strategy ETF, CVNA, and that one has not distributed this week or for this month, because I guess they decided to skip out on it for this month. I guess they didn't do enough trades for make it worthwhile for them to have a distribution, even if it was a little low. So they're withholding that one for this month. So now that we see the distributions, go ahead and take a look at how much we earn. So starting off with the monthlies, with AMD, we have 232 shares, $38.12 per share is the distribution, and we received $88.44. That is higher than the previous month, but of course that is also with a higher amount of shares and a little bit higher of a distribution. If we take a look at last year, we are still beating this distribution compared to December, but we are way lower than it was in November and October. And as you can see, with 110 shares, which is more than half of what it is now, we still received $89.54 comparative to $88.44, and that is because of course, the $81.4 distribution per share that received in November, and the $92.12 in October. So it's an interesting moment with AMD. Like I said, I want to talk about AMD. So I am down on AMD. I'm not going to hide that. I'm down 25.86% on AMD, or $718. It's currently 2.52% of my portfolio, and I am down on it. Now, what is my outlook on it? Well, of course, if you guys do or do not know, AMD is down as well, or AMD is down as well. It's down negative 9.41%, and it went down after market today or yesterday because of a really poor, or I wouldn't even say poor. It was okay. The EPS beat estimated EPS, or earnings per share, but they did have less investments into the AI space, as well as a less look into the future in the AI space. Of course, this is not a video about AMD. This is a video about distributions, but just looking in general, if we look at the past week, AMD is down negative 5.74%, and if we take a look at AMD, it is down negative 4.73%. So we are down less on AMD for the week than we are down on AMD, the underlying. And of course, that's because of the covered calls that are covering it a little bit on the downside. And as you can see, we are trending upwards with AMD. But my reasoning for continuing to reinvest into AMD and continuing to purchase more shares than AMD, even though being down 25.57%, is of course lowering my cost basis, which is $11.97. As well as I do see a future in AMD. I think it's very undervalued, especially in the price as it is at right now. It might the underlying AMD might reach double digits in the 90s, 80s at least. But I'm going to continue to purchase if AMD decides to have a reverse split. If the YieldMax decides to reverse split, okay, they have a reverse split. But I do believe that AMD has a possible future. That's why I'm thinking, let me invest into AMD for now. I'm going to invest into AMD so I could receive distributions and have possible growth in the future if they're able to capture it. I'm also looking to open up leaps in AMD, the underlying, but that's a whole different story for that. But yeah, so that's AMD, $88.44, continuing to reinvest into it. Of course, I'm going to use some of the distributions I got from last week to put into AMD, buy a couple more shares and lower my average cost. So I'm going to do that tomorrow on Thursday. We also got, of course, the weekly distributions, so we take a look at that. We got our weekly distributions for the first week of February for YMAX, and as you can see, we've added 30 shares, roughly 30 shares into YMAX, so we have 568 shares, and of course, the 0.4515, that's been staying stable. As you can see, I've been adding whole shares into YMAX. So we got 1944 as the distribution, and that gave us a total of $110.51. 39.97% higher than the last week, where we got $78.95, and beating all of the weeks. I just messed it up. We're beating all of the weeks from the month of January. Coming in once again as $110.51, and it's nice seeing YMAX back around the 20-cent mark. Of course, it's not at 20 cents just yet. It's at 1944, but if we could see. Before, where we're at 455 shares and we got 24.48 of distribution, we received $111, and we even received $114 when we had a 30-cent distribution. So, as you guys may or may not know, my goal with YMAX is to get it and keep it stable at $100 per week, earning me $400 per month, roughly, plus or minus. And that's somewhere nice and okay at staying at. Of course, to stay in that position, they would have to continue paying 20 cents per share. And to do that, they have to increase and continue to hold their distribution for other companies, as well as while they diversify YMAX into other ETFs that they own. So the new Carvana fund is probably to go into YMAX. They do have to also keep up this distributions, because the more you diversify, the lower the distributions are, assuming you add lower distributing ETFs. But we're going to continue adding shares as well. So, of course, the more shares we add, the more we're going to be receiving, of course. So, 1944 for today would receive us $110. But say we added another 30 shares and we got to $600, we would receive $120 or $130. So, yeah, that's the plan for YMAX. $110.51 is how much we earned. So, in total, if you think about it, just from YieldMax alone, even on this slow week and sold distributions for myself personally, $110, and then we receive $88. So we received around, what is that, almost $200. Actually, yeah, almost $200 we received from just YieldMax alone. Not the greatest of weeks, but it's okay. I will take it. It's enough for me to take that money and distribute it into next week, where we're gonna have Amazon and Apple paying. Amazon and Apple, yeah, Apple and AMDY are going to be paying next week for us for Group D distributions. We also have Roundhill ETFs, as you guys may or may not know. I do trade Roundhill as well. Roundhill ETFs, so XDT, QDT, RDT, and YBTC have released their weekly distributions. XDT at 1783, QDT at 2313, RDT at 2796, and YBTC at 5654. So I only own QDT out of all these. I do trade not RDT. The reason I don't trade RDT is because I do have the Russell 2000. I have the TNA 3 times leverage, the Russell 2000, so I do trade that myself. So there's no point in me owning RDT if I already have some of my portfolio in that same sector, so in the Russell 2000. And of course we have XDT, which is the S&P, and I also do trade the S&P as well. So there's no point in me owning XDT currently or RDT. YBTC I was looking into, but I actually purchased a new ETF, YETH, or the Ethereum ETF they do have that pays monthly, and that's going to be a very interesting thing to track. That's my little position that I'm opening up into the crypto space. So taking a look at Roundhill weeklies, we could see that I did receive a distribution for, let's go ahead, where is it? I think it's on my right side. There it is. For the Roundhill weeklies, I received a distribution of $52.76 from the 2313 that was distributed. Of course, I have 228 shares, 228.1226, and that gave me that $52.76, or the 23.62% gain over last week. As you guys can see, I am reinvesting QDT's dividends. Of course, QDT is not part of the YieldMax formula, so therefore I just allow QDT to reinvest into itself. So that's why we're having those little share additions every single week. We have an extra share that's being added, and of course I do sometimes add in some of my option income into it, as you can see here, from 220 to 227, from 213 to 228 or 218. So I do add a little bit of my option income there as well, or YieldMax income, whenever I get the chance to. But in general, QDT has been performing quite well. It is lower than YMAX, of course, because it is also double the price. And not only that, it does distribute less than YMAX as well. But as you can see, we stay around the on average $50 mark. As you can see, 63, 39, 73, 54, 42, and now 52.76. I hope they continue to stay above the 20-cent mark, same as YMAX. The 20-cent mark will be great to see from QDTE. And of course, to receive $100 a week, I would have to double myself up to 100 or 500 shares as well. But that, of course, will be more expensive because QDT on a share price is more expensive. So yeah, that is all the distributions there are for me. $52.76, $88.100, so that comes out to roughly $250-ish made for this week. Not too shabby, not the greatest. It could have been better, but it's okay. Of course, these are not the high monthly YieldMax ETFs that I received, like AMDY, like AMDY, like Tesla. AMD used to be high yielding, but we can see that it's been trending downwards, and of course that's the fault of the underlying AMD. But yeah, that is the distributions for YieldMax and for Roundhill. Great thing to see from CONY. Great thing to see from NFLY. Hopefully they can keep up those distributions, and as well as LFGY and GPTY. If these two weeklies are able to keep it at 33.53 and at 62.80, that'll be great to see from them as well. It's going to be great to see those funds grow. If they're able to grow and stay NAV stable, as well as distributing those shares, it'll be very, very nice to see. So that is all for me for Wednesday. I'll be seeing you guys Friday when we're going to be looking at our overall portfolio for the month of January and how much we earned in dividend and option income. It was a good month, not the greatest, but it was a good month, and we did continue to stay above the level that I would like to stay at. But you guys will see that on Friday. So thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on Friday.